Welcome to the Greek recording of today's verses. For a commentary on these verses, see my podcast on patreon.com. Well, let's look at the Greek. And the patriarchs, having been jealous, so this is an aorist participle. My aunt is an active participle, and then sigma alpha indicates aorist. The patriarchs, having been jealous with regard to Joseph, I guess we'd call that accusative of reference maybe, they sold him into Egypt. This is Do. Do is didomi. It's the aorist of didomi. So this is apodidomi, which is to repay, or it seems to be sell in the middle here. This is middle voice, that lu amenu eta ametha este anta, third person plural. Okay, aorist, middle indicative, third plural from apodidomi. Okay, and was God with him? Well, yes, he was. God is the subject, so we would want to shift it around a little. And God was with him. This is the imperfect of Ami. Verse 10. And he took him out, not as in bam, but as in he rescued him. He rescued him from all the tribulations of him. This is ex-iro. Iro has a weird aorist. Ela is the aorist of Iro. It's very strange. I know this is aorist just because I've kind of memorized it. Aorist middle, I think it's aorist middle indicative, third singular from ex-iro. Okay, and he gave him, this is the aorist of didomi. Hopefully that's becoming familiar to you because we've seen it a number of times. It's a very important form. You should know it. He gave. And he gave him grace and wisdom before Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. Okay, and he appointed him, this is kathistemi, this is histemi, stay. You see the histemi there in the middle. Aorist, nu with an epsilon in front of it is almost always a movable nu. Throw it away. Epsilon is a very common third person singular past tense active indicative ending. There's the augment so kathistemi, and he appointed him the one leading. It's a participle here. My men are passive participles. It's hegetamai is the word, which means to lead, but basically it means he appointed him governor over Egypt and over all of his house. Okay. Hopefully you know this. Again, this is a very important irregular second aorist to memorize, the aorist of Urkamai. It came, he, sheer, it came, is what Aelthen means, and it's a famine. Limos came. Not a limousine, because that would be nice. A limos, it's a famine. So a famine came over all Egypt and Canaan, and a tribulation great, and a great tribulation. And they were not finding grasses. No, they were not finding foods. My ma, unlike my ma, this is a neuter word. This is a neuter plural alpha. This is the aorist. This is the imperfect of heurisco. If it were aorist, it would lose the sco. So it's imperfect. And they weren't finding food. Where is it? Where can I find some? They weren't finding it. Imperfect is continuous past tense. They were not finding foods. That is, the fathers of us were not finding foods. This is the subject. This is nominative. Verse 12. Having heard, aorist participle, nominative masculine singular, and Jacob having heard satia being, anta, wheat being, grain being. Anta is a active participle, except it's a me. So we might not say active because it's a being verb, but it's present. So Jacob, having heard wheat being in Egypt, he sent away. Apostello, this is the aorist, internal lengthening, drop down to one lambda, nu with an epsilon in front of movable nu, epsilon, very common third person singular, past tense ending. Liquid verbs don't do sigmas. There's the augment. Okay. He sent away the fathers of us first, sent them down to Egypt first, verse 13. And on the second time, Joseph was made known to the brothers. This is aorist passive because of the theta eta. There's the augment of the aorist. It's indicative, third singular. Anagnosko. I knew Anagnosko well. Asked her out, but she turned me down. Okay, you know Anna. Okay, so anyway, Joseph was made known to the brothers of him, and manifest he became to Pharaoh. This is the Arist of Ginnamai. That is his race, the family of Joseph, I think is probably what this means. The family of Joseph became known to Pharaoh. Okay. Genos is interesting. I think of it as being race or kind, tribe, maybe his herd, his group, his peeps. Okay. And Joseph, having sent, he invited, this is metakaleo, Eris, because the sigma alpha, it is middle. I don't know if it's deponent or not. I don't think it is. Joseph invited Jacob, the father of him, and all the kinsmen in souls 5 and 70, 75 souls. Now, of course, souls here doesn't mean they're all dead. Let me count you. Make your souls visible. This is the older Hebrew way of talking about souls, namely people. Verse 15. I don't know if that plays into the source theory. As I talk about in the podcast, some have suggested that there may have been a source of Stephen's sermon. I don't think of Luke as being particular Hebraic in the way he writes, but this use of souls is more Jewish, I think, than it would be Greek. Okay, verse 15. And Jacob descended into Egypt. This is katabino. Bino in the aorist loses its bine. It loses its ein. And so there's not much left of it. But it's aorist. I have it memorized that it's aorist. Aorist active indicative third singular from katabino. Okay, and he died. This is aorist active indicative third singular from teluteo. He himself died. That is Jacob. And the fathers of us died eventually. Verse 16, and they returned into Shechem. Aorist passive because of the theta eta, and son is a third person plural ending. It's a little confusing because theta eta sigma might make you think, it's future passive, but the sigma goes with the ending, not with the theta eta in this particular form. So it's aorist passive indicative third plural from metatithemi. Lots of me verbs today. They returned to Shechem. Now Joseph was buried at Shechem. Maybe Joseph's brothers were buried at Shechem. I don't think Jacob was buried at Shechem. I think Jacob was buried, in Hebron. Anyway, I talk a little bit about this in the video. It's very controversial. And they put Tithemi in the tomb which Abraham bought, sigma alpha. I think this is an augmented omicron, so oneo or something like that. This might be irregular. I'm sorry, I should have looked that up. Abraham bought for a price of silver from the sons of Hamor in Shechem. A slight discrepancy with Genesis here because Abraham bought a tomb in Hebron from Ephron the Hittite. Jacob bought a tomb from Hamor in Shechem, where Joseph is buried. And I talk a little about that in the podcast. There are two interpretations. One is that Luke is intentionally blurring the two burial places in light of the fact that we're about to have a mission into Samaria, where Shechem was, which would have really ticked off the high priest, by the way. The other is that he accidentally conflated them. But anyway, you see the podcast. If you want to know more about that, this has been the Greek of Acts 7, 8 through 16.